Welcome to Her Script, inspiring you to empower yourself, champion others, and discover your role models in the dynamic world of life sciences. I am your host, Kara Pepler. In each episode, we sit down with remarkable women leaders at the forefront of healthcare innovation, from research and development to medical affairs, business development, and beyond. Discover bottom-line solutions to break through glass ceilings, overcome gender bias, and score your own path to success. Whether you're a seasoned professional in the biopharmaceutical industry or someone just starting their career, tune into Her Script and be inspired to lead in one of the most vital sectors of our society. Today, I'm excited to talk to Chantel Wilson Chase. She's a data insights expert leading the quality analytics and reporting division at Alexion AstraZeneca's rare disease business unit. What's more is that she's incredibly passionate about qualitative research, including behavioral engagement, team dynamics, and psychological safety. Chantel earned an undergraduate degree in actuarial science and mathematics and a master's degree in applied sociology with a concentration in survey research and design. With positive human-centric experiences as the underlying motivation from her work, Chantel ardently translates complex data into actionable insights that improve the employee experience and drive productivity, improve retention, and overall workforce effectiveness. So let's take a chance to welcome Chantel to the show. Welcome. For listeners who have never met you or heard you speak, how would you describe yourself using 2 or 3 words?
Well, first, thank you, Kara, for inviting me to be part of this podcast. I really appreciate it. And I love your interview style. And so thanks so much. So I guess if people haven't heard me speak at any conferences or interviews, I guess I would say curious. I'm very curious, passionately curious, but I tend to be logical and creative. And I think kind of it seems like a juxtaposition, but it really isn't. And probably I think my closest friends would say I'm a bit emotional too, because I think we are emotional creatures. So I would kind of give all of those. And I think curiosity is probably my biggest sort of personality trait that drives me.
I love it. Curiosity is such a good one because it's good for business. It's good for life, really, but it creates a space where really, look into safe and think outside the box. If you're creating that for your team, it helps build this foundation of trust, respect. By cultivating this curiosity, it really can lay the groundwork for a more adaptive and innovative organization. So being curious is an amazing driver. It's kind of an open the door type aspect to your personality. I like it. And being logical, it's important. You all have to be logical in this industry, right? You have to have some element of that, and that kind of helps to ground some of that curiosity. And so I know for myself, really, in this quality role that I play in my day-to-day life, I can relate to this logical piece too. Analyzing complex problems and identifying root causes, developing effective solutions. So it really has to. I think that balance is important, and it's great that you recognize that you've got 2 distinct aspects to your personality.
That's so true. And with the curiosity piece, I think it's an absolute asset because it allows you to question things. So oftentimes, if you think about STEM traditionally, there's a lot of logic to it and there's a lot of rigidity at times. And sometimes you have to be able to calculate very efficiently, very proficiently. And so once you've calculated it, it's done. But the curiosity piece, when you're looking at data specifically, it does open up doors because you go, why did this happen? Or why did this blip? I always use the term blip. I think my data blipping tells me something, but I don't often know what it tells me until I allow myself to go a little further.
Tell me a little bit about your core values. Is it curiosity? Is it logic? Is it different than that?
So I'm a Christian, so I do my core values align with that. So being kind, treating others as you wish to be treated, and in a work environment, that means giving people space, liberty, patience, mercy, grace, forgiveness. It's part of my home life and it's part of my work life is grace and mercy for people.
Who were your early role models and how did they shape your aspirations?
Okay, so I've had a ton of role models along the way. So I was always interested in school and I was always academically inclined. And not everyone, and I recognize not everyone often is. And we find our role models kind of where we are. And I found them with kind hearted teachers all along the way. I can tell you every teacher I had from kindergarten to seventh grade by name. And they all had something magical to give me because they taught me how to learn. And then as I went further down in my academic life in college, I had this professor who was the head of mathematics department at Avery Point, which is a satellite of University of Connecticut. And he was incredible. He was kind-hearted. He was wonderful. And I was sort of, working my way through college and maybe not going the traditional route. Going to the main campus was a little bit more expensive for me. He saw that and he actually gave me one-on-one classes in the cafeteria, upper level classes in the cafeteria to sort of postpone having to go to stores to the university main campus, which was a little bit more expensive and a harder commute for me. So he's absolutely memorable. He made statistics fun. We played games on the cafeteria table with it. And then going back to my father, he passed in 2019, but he was a big debater. He was very logical. And he was a very big debater. If it was daytime, he would debate that it's night. And so sort of teaching you that civil discourse over drinks as a young adult was pretty normal. And some people would view it as argumentative, but I just viewed it as engaging and fun. And when I would win that side or be persuasive enough, he would then turn it around and he would take that side and I would have to jockey to the other side. So it was just really cool. I liked it and I missed that a lot.
It's almost like you were engaging in your own debate team at home. It was like,
yes,
you didn't have to join a team at school. You just did it at home and it was just naturally occurring.
Yeah. And I'm always, and I think young adults, like me, I won't speak for other young adults, but when I was a young adult, I had very strong beliefs. They got muted as I got older because life happens and things you kind of go, oh, I understand a little bit better. But things were very black and white. So being able to be agile in your thinking was something that he taught me because of those lengthy. And we would have debates on topics that would go on for months, not days, not hours, months.
Wow.
Yeah.
That sounds really involved. I think it's important that you just noted you were just reflected on your younger self and how you were seeing things maybe in a more narrow scoped manner. Mm-hmm. And your father helped you to sort of get curious and explore some of those other angles and approaches to understanding a situation or even going that step further and debating about it or discussing it, standing your ground in that side of the debate. That sounds like an incredible skill and opportunity that I've going up.
I feel like it was. I feel like people don't appreciate open discourse, open, pleasant, non-aggressive discourse where you can, and for team building, if we're going back to my leadership style, it really is, you have to be able to bring ideas to the table, and you have to be able to debate on the merits of both sides. Often I haven't, as I've gotten older, I've learned that things aren't black and white. It's always kind of some muted shade, somewhere on some scale, and it's a balancing act. So being able to debate openly and in a way that isn't all or nothing is really helpful. And you have to be able to kind of think with some measure of agility.
It just came to mind that you probably have to be able to pivot pretty quickly, right? Like when there's a lot of different opinions and thoughts coming to the table, you just sort of have to adjust.
Right.
So how would you describe your overall leadership style?
I'm a big proponent of a couple things. One is making sure I have an environment that is safe and kind and open and loving for any employees that I have the privilege of being their direct manager. So that's number one, is I want to create that. I want to create this kind environment. Second is the job and the skill sets to that. So that comes second, which often is a little bit hard for people when I say that to them, but that really is like it. So their skill set is secondary. And what I mean by that is when they come to the table, when they come to my team, I often have conversations and I watch and I monitor and I see how they're doing and I see where they shine, because there really is an overabundance of work. In any job, we're all doing 1.5 to 2 jobs for every one full-time job. We're doing multiple. So because there's so much work, I have the luxury of helping them sort of what I call right fit. And I always say, if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will deem itself a failure and you will judge it as a failure as well. But if you put the fish in the ocean and the bear on land, now we've got it all right fit. So that's what I spend a lot of time doing, is looking at people and going, this is a skill set that this person enjoys, is naturally good at, and I can see they shine, because we all shine somewhere. So when you're not placed correctly is when you don't shine, but every employee should shine.
You talk about how you strive to create this loving, this kind and safe environment, but you've also created an environment where you're actively seeking to understand the team members too, at that personal level, to be able to determine whether they're a fish or they're a bear, and then the work that corresponds to each of those. It really takes a skilled leader to appreciate those skills of their team and what they bring to the table. Okay, let's transition a little bit to some of the work that you've done and created in your blog posts. Data listening is really a common thread that you have throughout your website, and you work to uncover deeper meaning and hidden layers of meaning to inform strategy. So at baseline, can you describe what data listening means?
Yes, and I appreciate you asking, because I feel like I just started using or coined the term, or whatever you want to call it, to basically describe for myself more effectively all the various types of data that we have to bring to the table. And it's all data. And when I say it's all data, I mean it is all data. So we have to listen to what is being said, and that we become effective when we bring sort of qualitative research, quantitative, and we use the effective and appropriate analysis for it. So we don't analyze data the same way. It depends on the type of data you get. You might have to do thematic coding. You might do correlation analysis. So you have to do the appropriate type of analysis for the data. And that's why I say data listening, because it's not exclusively one or another or another. It's all of it.
So I'm not a data scientist, and I'm not looking at tons of data in aggregate on a day-to-day basis. So for the vast majority of us who are not doing formal data analytics every day, how do we become data listeners?
I would probably be more inclined, if I wasn't sort of that quantitative science space, I would be sure to be paying attention to, as a team leader, the sociological aspects. Who do we have who's quiet? Who do we not have who's quiet? Amount of projects coming into the team, amount of attrition, amount of lateral transfers, stakeholder management, so things like that. So all of this is data that we aggregate, and you could do it if it's a layman's terms kind of thing, Kara, then you just kind of have it in your own mind. It's constant assessment is really what that is, that piece of it. Constant assessment. Is my workload overflowing? How do I manage that? That's all data. All of it's data. And if you have less work coming into your shop, into your unit, that's something too. That could be very telling. You might have poor stakeholder management. Your team might be difficult to work with, or it might not be effective products you're producing. If you have tons of work coming in, you might need to hire more staff. It also says you probably have better stakeholder management, and or you're producing better product and more useful product. So it's really like it kind of, that's another way to look at it too.
That's very insightful. It's not just about the data that you see, it's the data that we don't see.
Yes, I'm all about the data you don't see.
All right. So you're a data scientist. You're trained to cultivate deep meaning from data, and you identify a story based on the broader people first scope. Can you tell me more about why you believe a people first approach should be important to leaders?
We're here with each other. So there's no extracting us from each other. If you treat people well and you do take a people first approach, you will get better engagement with your employees. You will get higher return on investments. You will get happier customers because you have happier employees. So they're more likely to be decent and have a good working environment. So they're going to be more pleasant to the customers. They're going to give better customer service or patient service, whatever your line of work is. So it's an ROI. It's an extraordinary financially solid return on your investment to do a people first approach if you want to take it very tactically. And I told you before that my core values require that anyway. So it's a win-win for me.
So it helps to sort of generate a positive level of influence on the culture when you take this people first approach, it sounds.
Yeah. And also, I just want to go back to the team thing because you made me think of something else. My leadership style is not at all hierarchical. Now, while I do lead the department, the analytics space, I actually am just one person in it. So we all have conversations, and that also goes back to the debating, open discussion. And my team has asked me to do work for them. So there has to be a very safe environment where they've said, hey, Chantel, can you do this? Can you write this for me? Can you do this? And I say, yeah. So it's not really, can you schedule a meeting for me for this thing? Yes, of course. So it goes back and forth, and it really does go back and forth. And I think that makes it a much more pleasant work environment too, and a much more cohesive team.
All right. So I just want to keep going on this people first approach.
Okay.
I did a little bit of research right after looking at your blog, and I noticed that there is research that shows that engaged employees contribute to a host of positive outcomes when they feel a sense of purpose and connection to their organization. They're more productive, creative, more collaborative, and they demonstrate higher levels of creativity than not engaged counterparts. And I found it interesting that there's a poll by Gallup that found that organizations with highly engaged employees earn 21% higher profitability and 2.3 times higher revenue growth compared to organizations with overall lower engaged employees. So I'd like to hear your thoughts. How can leaders influence higher engagement on their team?
Let people shine. Don't force them into an area for which you know they're terrible at. If you have the luxury of that. If you do, however, get a person in a space where it's a fish on a tree, help them. Don't judge them because you know it's not them. It's the environment. There was this wonderful story that Simon Sinek had told about this guy named Noah. And Noah worked at like these two places. He worked at like Caesar's Palace and the Four Seasons. I might be making some of this up. I don't remember exactly his story, but it was good. It was good because his point was the square peg in the round hole. So the dude had the same job. He was like a barista, a coffee person. And at the Four Seasons, he was awesome and he was nice and he was talking to Simon and everything was great. And then he shared with him that when he went to his other job, his second job with the same title, the same pay, the same everything, same skill set, same person, he was terrible. His managers were, trying to find when he did things wrong or trying to call him out. And he was miserable at that job and happy at the first job, and it was the same job with the same skill set. Tells me your environment matters. Create empowering environments, and people don't want to fail. No one goes to work and goes, oh, I want to be terrible at my job. No one does that. Who does that? Nobody. They don't go, oh, I want to go in and I want to feel terrible about myself and I want to feel terrible at my job. They go in wanting to do well, wanting to get praise, wanting to be liked, wanting to belong, wanting to be good at something. So that's kind of it.
You make a great distinction, right? You talk about sort of this maybe static way of leadership, which I actually say it's more management. And then the dynamic piece is the leadership piece. You're actively creating an environment that fits the needs of the team. Is it the leader's responsibility to change that dynamic? That environment? Is it a team? Is it both? How can that situation change so that anybody who's a part of that environment can re-engage if they're starting to feel detached?
I would first say don't be a leader if you don't want to lead. Yeah, it's your responsibility. If you have a toxic environment, it's your responsibility, and it's also a reflection on you. And I know that might sound harsh, but your environment is a reflection on you. So I would make haste and I would work to get that corrected. If it's one person or if it's an environment or if it's a process that's poisoning it, or if you have somebody higher up who's micromanaging on down and infiltrating your department, I would figure out what is the cause. It's on the leader to change. The team is engaged, of course, in the change and participates in the change, but the one at the helm sets the tone, and you can't get around that.
You wrote a discussion piece about moments that matter, in which you say strong emotions make powerful and lasting impressions, and they influence the perceptions people have of their company. What are moments that matter? And can you give me an example?
I know. I've been really thinking about this a lot and how to capture, because we often don't know the moment until it's gone. So we didn't capture it. So there's very obvious ones. There's ones like the hiring experience. There's ones like when a big project is done. Is there a celebration? Is there accolades? Is there those moments matter? When somebody's down and out, when there's a medical leave issue, are we a supportive company? Those are moments that matter. Are we there for them in a difficult time? That's a moment that matters to them. The other pieces are things that we might not know. Did they apply for a job, have their heart set on it, and not get it? That's going to matter to them, and we're just going to go on with business as usual. They're in the same role. We don't really think much about it, but that may be a crushing blow. So some of the moments we will know, and some of the moments we won't know. And you think about even in your own life, right? So in my own life, I've had some at times somebody could say something and it cuts right through me. They thought nothing of it. I'm still not over it. Kind of, like it hurt. And there's also been big celebrations, successes. Some of the moments will be very obvious that they matter, but some won't. And I've been really pondering that piece of capturing things, like when people apply and they don't get it, when it's the inverse of what we hope. It's very easy to capture. We've had 10 internal promotions, but did we have 20 internal candidates? because all 20, it mattered, and we promoted 10. You got to think in those terms too. So some of it's going to be, it didn't happen, and that is a moment that mattered. When I was writing that piece, it's oftentimes missed opportunities that we don't measure correctly.
There could be maybe a natural overemphasis on the positive when we think about moments that matter. It's like the important milestones that were met, or it's positive achievements. But what you're saying is that there are moments that matter that could be very hurtful or even very personal, and how to measure those, or even just simply recognize them.
Think about right now what we face with candidate pools. On LinkedIn now, you can see 500 people applied for this job. One job. That means one person's going to get the job. 499. What are their experiences? And I would argue their experiences are a larger pool than the one that got it. So where is our measurement and understanding of that space?
I really like the emphasis on the data that's like sort of unsaid, or kind of like byproduct data, right? The remainder of the data. And
Right.
what is that data telling us? It kind of goes back to the beginning of what we were talking about and how you were debating with your father to see different aspects when you come to the table. So you're like essentially applying that same type of methodology here,
Exactly.
in another way.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
All right, so let's zoom out and tie this all together now. So in your editorial, What Makes a Great Company Culture, you articulate several recognizable characteristics such as clear values and mission, strong leadership, open communication, etc. But you dare to add one unconventional characteristic, which is love. Tell me why love deserves a seat at the culture table.
It's the reason I show up is because of love. So why would it not have a seat at the table? Why is it taboo for love to be discussed or included in work when it dictates so much of our lives? We're emotional human beings. I'm by trade a data scientist or mathematician or whatever you want to call it in the logical quantitative sciences. But I'm an emotional human being. I'm human. The reason I do things is out of love. Even if it's like family obligation, that's because I love them. So why does it not have a seat at the table? Why does it not?
It speaks to the fundamental human interactions,
Right.
empathy, respect, enjoyment of others, interests of others. They're all human connections and characteristics. So why not pull that up from beneath the surface and elevate that a little bit more? I think that's the argument here, right?
Yes, that's and I feel like it shouldn't even be an argument. It is the driving force. Most people go to work because they are supporting a family member they love, or because they love their work, or because they love their colleagues. So why would we not put that just out there?
All right. So I think about job changes, and they occur pretty commonly in this industry, in this biopharmaceutical industry. So people don't stay at one company forever. There's usually a lot of job movement for various reasons. So for any prospective person looking for another job somewhere else, is it possible that they can evaluate love when they go to evaluate their next company? Is that possible?
Love is a feeling. Uh, you have to put yourself out there to get it. So what you put in the universe, you will get back out. So if you put a jaded interviewer who is closed and reading by the book the interview questions, that's what you will get. If you interview with love in your heart, openness, vulnerability, your interviewee will feel safe and you will see who they truly are. If you ask them a list of questions, they tighten up, they freak out. You're in the position of power. They're not. They want the job. You have the job that they want. There's a power imbalance naturally. So if you're a cold fish reading from a script, that's what you're going to get back in return. You're going to get a nervous interviewee. giving you answers they think you want to hear. If you are open, kind, loving, let it go where it may, you'll find out who they are and if they're a good fit.
So going back to this whole theme that you have, it's kindness, it's love, it's building the connection with the person to see if there's this true, authentic connection with the person that you're interviewing. And that person can feel it. They can evaluate that. It's not just the interviewee, it's the interviewer as well. And then they can sort of establish that level, that deeper emotional level, which you're saying is love.
Yes, and pay attention to power imbalance. If you're in the position of power, which you are as the interviewer, you have the job that the person wants. You're interviewing them, you're asking them questions. This may be their one shot. This may be their last shot. This may be their 100th and they're discouraged. You're in the position of power. You be vulnerable first. Like, you be vulnerable first. You already know the power imbalance. You own it. So you've got to be more out there, more vulnerable, more open, more transparent. Don't scare people. Don't test them. It's just a jerk move.
I mean, it's already unsaid, right? If I'm an interviewee, I already know that I'm in the company. It's sort of this that you're in the safe seat. So
Yeah.
being in the safe seat, there's nothing for you to lose.
Yeah.
There's all for you to gain when you
Right.
can work to establish that connection
Right.
of vulnerability. Like you said, be by example. That's the first way. Maybe one can even evaluate that as an interviewee to see how the interviewer acts in the interview, and that's your first
Right.
first taste of how this maybe environment might work for you as you decide to join the company.
And you also don't get, when you button it up and script it, you don't get the authentic person. You probably scare them a little bit. They try to answer what they think you want. So you're hiring somebody who's saying what they think you want to hear, whether or not it's true. But if you're more open and kind and loving and create a safe environment, then this person will be open, kind, and loving and more trusting to tell you what they know, what they don't know, and you can assess a better fit. So it's a smart business practice to be kind.
Now I want to transition to the topic of mentorship. Tell me what mentorship means to you and how important is mentorship for women?
Okay, mentorship, we want to be doing this all the time. So we want to be, and it doesn't necessarily have to be sort of an age, like somebody fresh out of college, mentored by somebody who's a little bit more senior, mentored by a little bit more senior. It can be very matrixed, that we can mentor one another and we can learn from one another, because we never really should be done learning until we're done here on Earth. So we should be continually learning. So mentorship should be an ongoing thing across all of it. So men, women, young, old, everybody. So that's one thing. We should be mentoring each other all the time. And there's more structured mentorship, but informal should be ongoing all the time. For women in particular, I would be paying attention to some of our cultural differences, our innate cultural differences at work. And for example, would you ask a man about love at work? Probably not. But we can ask a woman about it, a little bit more socially acceptable. Would he talk about it? Probably not. When we come to the table, we bring some of ourselves with us, and we have some innate qualities using the love language. Men want a loving work environment, but perhaps they're less comfortable talking about it. And this is the beauty of allyship with one another, is I can bring some of my strengths and advocate and speak, because that is the essence of allyship. We speak for one another where they're less comfortable. Men have had, statistically, they have advantage in the work world on the career ladder. They can speak for women. They can open the door for women, and they can bring that to the table. And when we're speaking, they can give us the voice to be heard. They can say, what was she saying? Let's listen to her. So it's a two-way street. And when we bring our strengths and when they bring their strengths, that allyship becomes extraordinarily beautiful because we make their world better by creating a more loving work environment. For example, this was the spirit of what I was just mentioning, or they open the doors for us because they're already there. So that partnership brings a very beautiful balance.
You make an important point about how allyship, which is similar to mentorship, can really support women psychologically by demonstrating that they're valued in the organization. So tell me, Chantel, did you ever have a mentor yourself?
I've had many. The more formal ones, I had two nurses at Brigham and Women's Hospital, Carolyn and Diane, and they were a few years ahead of me. And although I didn't follow their career paths, so I was the statistician, the analyst on their teams. So they were nurses and they were doing research work. And I was on their team. I was not following a nursing path, nursing career, but they mentored me because, and I think about them often. I still actually stay in contact with them because they were open, they were kind, they were loving, they were teaching. And they were sharing their life experiences with me. I remember Diane when I was having my children, for example. Diane said, unrelated to work, she said, as I was having my children, I really think you should open a 529. And I was like, what is that? She's the one who told me. My sons are finishing college right now. Thank you, Diane. And she was enormously helpful, and I would not have known that. So mentoring can be work and career, but it's also in life and teaching people things that they might not know and exposing them to things they don't know. You might open up a door. That's mentoring. Being invested, being kind, sharing wisdom, sharing freely, caring about each other is mentoring.
What do you think organizations can do to support or promote women's advancement in the workplace?
I think we need to embrace a different way of working, like an absolute shift, a different mindset. You said it's daring to say love should be at the table. Why? When it's the underlying motivator for everything. Changing our mindset drastically, embracing different ways of thinking, embracing different ways of working, embracing culture shifts. As the younger generations enter into the workforce, we are starting to see barriers broken down. Thank you, millennials. Thank you, Gen Z. I love you. I appreciate you. You're breaking barriers I did not dare break down. I was too scared at the time, and they're doing it for me. So I appreciate that. Love is how you support women in the workplace. Love is how you support everybody in the workplace.
Do you have any tips for women to build meaningful professional connections?
I think find your passion, find the things that you like to do, and then find people who like to do those too naturally and raise each other up. I would ask, if you want to build meaningful connections, that you have to put your ego aside, and that you have to put your competitive nature aside for those meaningful connections, and do a attitude of service. What could you give to them? Not what can you get from them. So what can I give to the women that I want meaningful connections with, and not look at it like it's a competition.
I like that. It's more of a question of what can you give rather than what can you get.
Yeah.
All right, let's fully transition out of leadership and talk about how you balance your career. I have to imagine that you step away and take care of yourself once in a while. And I do know we had a conversation not that long ago about some amazing running that you do. So just tell me in general, what kind of daily, weekly, monthly routines do you have that keep you grounded?
Yeah. So I think everyone should step away. I think it's a healthy thing to do, but I don't think it should be a structured step away. So yes, I am a runner, and yes, I run compulsively and I've been running for 50 years. So yes, I run, and I run quite a bit, and quite a lot of miles every week. I generally run 10 miles 3 times a week, and then I do yoga. So but the running is really not, and I don't care about the pace as much as I care about being outside, being under the open sky and sort of working through problems. And it allows me to decompress. And I sometimes listen to a sermon or, just whatever, meditate, those sorts of things. But I also think, and I've learned this, I had an accident recently and I had to sort of switch up my routine and realize just how compulsive I was about it. And so I think I want to change a little bit of that wellness definition to be not necessarily, I have to run, or I have to do yoga, or I have to do weights, or I have to sit here and read a book for 15 minutes. Not so much structured something. It should be an unstructured anything.
Yeah, life comes at you fast, sometimes unexpectedly, and you just have to figure out what your next outlet's going to be that's different than what you've always done.
Yeah.
Which could sometimes be scary. How do you encourage the prioritization of wellness among your team?
I do a couple things. Number one is you role model. You always role model. So I have one runner in my team right now currently that I happen to know he's a runner. So I have him block out his running time. If he runs at lunchtime, I literally have him block it out on his calendar so that people don't disturb that. And it's a priority. And how I started doing that was I shared with him that I blocked it out. I blocked out my running time and here's where it was. And I showed him my calendar. I said, here's what I do. And so he started to role model that behavior. The other thing I do for my entire team is from Memorial Day to Labor Day, for example, I block off Friday afternoons and I put an invite in their calendars and I call it development time. And there's a whole description in there of what I expect, which is I expect it could be quiet time, it can be reading, it can be running, it can be trying a class, it can be sleeping, taking a nap, it can be working, because a lot of our work is quiet analytics. And oftentimes if you're bombarded by people in the chat, in the Zoom chats, in the team chats, in the emails, you don't have that sort of quiet time. So it could also be the quiet time to think and do your analytics. I actually don't care what it is. So my invite says it's to do something that helps you evolve as a human being, because that's what will make our team better ultimately. And then oftentimes somebody will bring something back and share with me what they did during that time. I took a class, I did this, I finished this book I was reading, and it's fun.
Yeah, that's a really great message. And you let your team determine what's going to make them evolve more informally than just, goals that you create.
Right.
You give them this gift of space for this self-reflection, which is incredibly important to determine to them from this holistic person perspective to do something that makes them better,
right.
Whether it's stepping back, slowing down, or in the opposite end, speeding up and taking on something new, which will then allow them to come back to the team refreshed and serve the team even better.
Oh, I got to share this one story with you. So on our team, we had a skydiver. So he would take Friday afternoons and he would skydive. He is now the Guinness World Record holder.
Oh my goodness.
I know. In like skydiving with a wingsuit at a certain, but whatever, like conditional. But yes, Guinness World Record.
Oh my gosh, that's incredible.
So he's evolving as a person. Like he's going to come to the team sharper, better, everything. Yeah.
Oh wow. Very, very cool.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. I'm going to ask you a couple of fun questions. So if you had to be a single age for the rest of your life, what age would you choose?
Oh my God. So I think we're timeless. That's a whole different topic. So if you want to do like a part 2 where we talk about our timeless souls, I'm all for that. I think it would probably hang around my mid-20s, although I just want one caveat. I didn't have my children until early 30s. So I still want them, but I think my soul would hang out in the mid-20s.
Very cool. Very cool. So you'd have to like splice,
I'd splice. There'd be some
and then bring them back into an
it'd have to be some sort of Keanu Reeves Matrixy thing. Yes.
All right.
what are your favorite songs from your teenage years that you still rock out to when no one's listening?
Bob Seger, he was probably the best concert I ever went to. Eagles, best band on earth. They play the music exactly the way you think it should sound, and that's a shout out to my dad in heaven. Eagles are the best band ever, and Bob Seger. I love Rod Stewart, John Cougar. So I'm kind of hanging in that space. Love that music, and those concerts were probably the best concerts ever.
Very cool.
Bob Seger definitely was.
Love it.
Yeah.
All right, we're heading to the final segment of the show right now, which is audience shout-outs. So it's really a shout-out to women leaders who have influenced your career, anyone you recognize with budding leadership potential, or anyone that just comes to mind as an influential leader that you either directly experience in your life or that you see as a role model.
Okay, so I want to shout out to Diane Lancaster, extraordinary mentor, now godmother to my children. She's a retired nursing executive. Carolyn Hayes, same thing, extraordinary wisdom, emotional IQ off the charts, teaching me far more than I could ever teach her. Liz Sullivan worked at Alexion with me, absolutely adore her, mentored me, hope to work with her again. I know you said women, but I'm going to say Chris Broadus, probably one of the best leaders I've ever had. I miss him every day. I got to say, I miss him every day. Dr. Montgomery, he's in heaven. He was the head of Avery Point, UConn classes. He took time to teach me specifically. My love of math is due to the wonderful math teachers before me that made it so engaging, so fun, and made it come alive. And Dr. Montgomery was absolutely instrumental in that.
So in closing, Chantel, how can listeners find you if they want to learn more about you or if they want to follow you? Where can they go to find you?
I love making new friends. So you can find me on LinkedIn. My name is Chantel Wilson Chase. I also have a website, chantelwilsonchase.com. I would love to share stories, share information, share equations, share fun things like that, or just kind of learn from each other. I could always use a new mentor myself, so I would appreciate that. It would be wonderful.
Chantel, thanks so much for coming on the show today. That was Chantel Wilson Chase, an accomplished data scientist whose focus is on qualitative behavioral research, team dynamics, and psychological safety. Check out our website at chantelwilsonchase.com or look her up on LinkedIn. Thanks for listening.